Hello, everyone. This is Ralph Duarte. Week number 4. Can you believe it? And I will be covering systems theory in today's presentation. So let's get right into it. So, my primary focus on the systems theory by Chester Barnard was one, locating an article that was relevant to the natural system theory. And then my primary focus on the Tompkins book was page 184. So, in the journal article, the authors explore Barnard's hypothesis and they apply it to an organization, and they're specifically focused on moral code and compliance and the relationship between these two variables. So, what I found interesting was that we all know that Barnard's natural system theory views organizations in a natural form, almost like, say, a living organism, so to speak, right? And their entire survival, or the natural systems approach, is that an organization's survival um, is predicated on understanding the organization from the perspective of adapting to things that are unpredictable and often hostile, of course, in relationship to the environment. Um, so, in a natural system theory or a natural system organization, they are constantly reinventing themselves, shifting themselves because environments can be that way. They can be very problematic. And in a natural system theory, they understand this, so they're constantly they're constantly shifting their focus based on the problems that they're facing at that time. So essentially that's what it is. It's more of an open type system, whereas a classical management system, we focused, it was more rigid and closed. And how this pertains to the task force is it we're gonna have the task force is gonna have to be open to problems that arise, and they have to be able to adapt to those problems in a natural system approach. So, moving on to the structural functional theory by Merton, um, it is understood that structures can be functions, and they perform in the maintenance of the subsystems that they're a part of. So, it's looking at an organization from for the context of it being an organism and it working together for stability or harmony, so to speak. And the article that I found was the one listed here: Introduction, Law and Its Unintended Consequences. So essentially, this ties into what was covered in some of the videos provided by the professor in regards to manifest and latent functions, right? So manifest functions are recognized and they're unexpected consequences of social patterns, and latent functions are unexpected and often unrecognized consequences. So essentially, this article is telling us that laws are being introduced, and as a result of these laws, there are some consequences, and sometimes these consequences can be understood, and sometimes these consequences are unexpected. And this is covered in the text as well. And same thing happens in within organizations. You'll have, for example, you have the educational system, which is designed to educate students and prepare them for the real world. And as a result, sometimes some unexpected consequences can occur as a result of those students going to school, and that could be that these students can develop social circles, and within those social circles, they can start to be exposed to negative things that society offers, like exposure to drug addiction, exposure to violence, and these can be understood as latent functions. So when we're looking at this in the perspective of the task force, we have to understand that there will be manifest and latent functions that occur within providing services to the homeless. And we have to be able to readjust and not be so rigid within the structure of this, because that can cause some significant problems within the functionality of the task force. So moving on to the open systems theory, it's a way of thinking about dynamic systems or systems that interact with their environments. Open systems, as depicted here on the graph, is essentially like an organism, right? A living organism in which inputs are going in, and that input that's going in is being understood by the organization. And as a result of the information that's being collected from the environment, they're adjusting organization to create some sort of service or output. Mostly within the world of public administration, this would be like getting feedback from the people that they serve, and then adjusting best practices as a result of that feedback in order to provide better service, would be an example of an open system. But this is constantly evolving. So it's not as if you create a best way and then it stays. It does not. It's constantly evolving based on what the environment has to offer. And the article that I found here was Open Systems Theory for Arts and Cultural Organization, and essentially looking at cultural organizations in the form of structure and performance, and how they adapt themselves based on what's going on in the environment. And my focus of all this information came from the Tompkins book, page 240 and 241. So thank you all. I hope this was brief and it was well understood, and I look forward to your feedback.